This week, artificial intelligence creating jobs, creating trends, and scoring runs. AI. That's what the future's about, if you believe the hype. Computer programs that learn from past experience, that improve, and that sometimes learn to solve problems in ways that even we hadn't thought of. Well, here at Microsoft's Future Decoded event, AI is at the top of the agenda. And these days, there are some very real examples of how AI is starting to be able to do things that were once only the reserve of humans. It's learning to drive, to play games. It's learned to paint. It's learned to understand what we say.
Each 10 years or so, we seem to have a breakthrough moment where we take a piece of human ability and defeat it with a machine. In '96 it was Kasparov with chess, Lee Sedol with Go last year, and we all worry. What that's demonstrating is our AIs are extraordinarily good now, superhuman in tasks that we can specify and understand. And in fact, they can improve and self-improve. The challenge is this whole idea of general intelligence or transfer across tasks. And that proves much more challenging, much more difficult. We think it'll take many decades to unfathom that. And the old adage was, well, you can't teach a machine to do something the programmer didn't program it. Well, not if you have a learning capacity in the system. It allows it to go beyond the performance that was originally given to the system.
And it is certainly true that AI is already replacing us in particular jobs. We'll talk more about that later. But we thought we'd start with an interesting phenomenon which is happening in certain parts of the developing world, where AI is actually creating jobs. See, in order for artificial intelligence to learn, it needs to have access to loads and loads of data. For example, self-driving cars need to have access to images where all the objects in them are correctly tagged. Now, that work is being done by humans. Dave Lee sent this report, not from California, but from where the artificial intelligence journey really starts.
This is the Kibera slum in Nairobi, Kenya. More than 1 million people live here. I'm 10,000 miles and what feels like an entire universe away from the lush campuses of Silicon Valley.
How are you?
Hello! But the people I'm here to meet are every bit as vital to the next wave of cutting-edge tech as anyone you could meet in California.
And you have your brother living here?
Yeah, my brother, my daughter, my mom. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Are they all supported by you?
Yeah, they all supported with me.
This is Brenda. She's a 26-year-old single mother who has lived in Kibera her entire life.
How does it feel to be creating the technology that's going to change the future?
It feels so good. At least you get to do something unique from others. At least with my work that I'm doing, I believe in, I work for something that is going to help me, not even me in future, but it's going to help someone in future.
Every workday, Brenda travels for around 2 hours to a building on the other side of Nairobi. She is among a team of around 2,000 people who work in this building for Samasource, an organisation that recruits people from the very poorest parts of the world. In some cases, that means those who are earning less than $2 a day. Here, they earn around $9 a day, and their important job is to give artificial intelligence its intelligence.
When artificial intelligence works, it sometimes feels like magic, but really what it is data. Lots and lots of data. If you want a self-driving car to know what a person is, you have to feed it loads of pictures of people. If you want it to know what a tree is, it takes millions and millions of pictures of trees. That's what's called training data. And it's here where that data is created.
So depending on the instructions, you're going to basically tag or annotate
items of interest.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
From the street to the vehicles, the buildings, even to the sky. Right.
Okay. How's that?
That's good.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Not quite right?
Not quite right. You know why?
Why?
The item needs to be squarely inside that box.
Right.
So if we zoom in, just zoom in, use this.
Turns out no pixel can be out of place or unaccounted for. The sky, the street signs, the pedestrians, the lanes, everything needs tagging. Once the work is done, a supervisor will check it's up to scratch. The quickest, sharpest annotators in the team will win prizes, such as shopping vouchers. Samasource's clients include Google, Salesforce, eBay, Yahoo and many others, working on everything from self-driving cars to online shopping. One recent project for Microsoft's Bing search engine helped it become better at identifying different types of clothing. The building, in many respects, feels like a typical Silicon Valley campus, complete with subsidised food. 52% of employees here are women in a country where having a child can typically rule you out from having a career.
Like a lot of people say, if you have a man in the workplace, he'll support his family. If you have a woman in the workplace, she'll support her family and the extended family. So you actually have a lot more impact if you can impact women and allow them to work as well.
While most of their employees are, of course, in the developing world, the company's headquarters can be found in San Francisco's Mission District.
When I first started this business 10 years ago, very smart people in the tech world and in the world of big philanthropy said that this was a wonderful idea, but that it would never work.
Lila touts her company's record on quality and security as reasons why tech firms come to them. But of course, there is a very obvious reason why these tasks are outsourced to places where wages are rock bottom and people are desperate for work.
Some of your clients are the biggest, richest companies in the world. Can they not afford to pay more than $9 a day for this work?
We make a guarantee to every single worker at Samasource that they are paid a living wage. If we were to pay people substantially more than that in some of the markets that we're in, we would throw everything off, and that would have actually a potentially negative impact on the cost of housing, the cost of food, et cetera, and the communities in which our workers live and thrive. So for us, we're on average increasing our workers' household income by over 500%.
That impact can be seen right in the heart of Kibera, where lessons in basic digital literacy are run by Samasource at a location within the slum. The people who take these jobs often do it for only a couple of years, but it's a starting point for much better things.
It has changed my everything. It has changed my perspective. It has exposed me to see there's hope beyond just living here. Like I have shifted. I was living, such houses, but right now I'm living at a good place.
Yeah.
Where
So it's just improved your quality
it has improved. Sure.
I think there's an obvious moral obligation that the companies that offer this work make sure the workers are valued and safe and protected. And I think we have a moral obligation as well as the people who enjoy the products they create, because AI isn't going to be seen in a place like this for quite some time. But at least what is happening is education, because from what I've seen, Kenya isn't just getting AI trainers, they're getting AI experts.
One of the big themes that came out of Click Live in India was the power of artificial intelligence and its impact on people's work, especially on their jobs. One company hoping to ride the AI boom is iMerit, and its founder, Radha Basu, explained how AI won't just replace humans. It needs a human workforce to train the algorithms in the first place by clearly annotating training images like these.
Could you explain to everyone here what iMerit does?
In order for AI algorithms to work, they have to be trained. It's like computer programming. If you just put a computer there and say work, it doesn't work. So you have to program it. That's called training AI. What we do is train AI and enrich the data so that our clients can get the best results out of their AI algorithms.
So you have a huge human workforce that's training AI, and we've got some examples of the kind of things that your workers do that we'll put up on the screen here. So just, this is some of the examples of what your humans are doing to create this training data,
That's
yeah?
correct. We're called humans in the loop of AI. So it could be as simple as taking different cars in a parking lot, doing bounding boxes around them, knowing which cars have damage, so being able to look at automatically picking that up and sending that like an insurance investigator would do. Now this is where we have probably done the most work. We've done more than 15 million images for self-driving autonomous cars. We work with a variety of car manufacturers, and if you look at this, it's called bounding boxes and polygons, but it's at a pixel level, so it's dense pixel segmentation. So think, for example, there are a few toes onto the crosswalk. How do you know whether that belongs to a cat, to a small child? There's a wad of paper on the street. Do you know if it's a rock or a wad of paper? So when we do this pixel segmentation, it's very complex, and you can have up to 50 to 70 different things you're marking.
So just to be clear then, you're training the AI, this is a person, this is a car, and then it goes away and learns from that training
data. So when
data.
the car looks at the street scene, we have trained the AI algorithms so that the computer can learn from it. For the first time, we have technologies in AI that can be used for crucial societal applications, particularly like healthcare. There are, in the amount of data, healthcare is about a third of the data. And the ability that we have, as you can see there, this is our work, where you actually can go in and look at cancer cells, and we actually annotate them in these images and use this to train the AI algorithms. And if you think about this in a broad societal sense, this can be taken to a large number of people who do not have access to this kind of care, and you can do pre-screening for cancer cells.
What's really important is the type of person that you employ.
So that, I think, is the core, I would say, the core contribution of iMerit. iMerit has 1,500 people, and we're hiring about 200 to 300 people a quarter. So AI is creating jobs.
Wow.
50% of the workforce for a technology services company, 50% of the workforce are women. Yes? And 80% of the workforce are coming from low-income backgrounds. They could be young Muslim women. We have one center that's called the Center of Excellence for Computer Vision. That's for image processing. And that center is all young Muslim women in a very poor community in Metrobus. So you can imagine that this is creating jobs that right from the beginning is inclusive of the workforce. It has diversity, and it has a lot of moral ethics that go with it.
Moment possible. But one figure towers above the rest. I've come to the University of Toronto to see the man they call the godfather of modern artificial intelligence, Geoff Hinton. Because of a back condition, Geoff Hinton hasn't been able to sit down for more than 12 years.
I hate standing. I'd much rather sit down, but if I sit down, I have a disc that comes out. So,
Okay. Well, at least now standing desks are fashionable. And...
Yeah, but I was ahead. I was standing when they weren't fashionable.
Since he can't sit in a car or on a bus, Hinton walks everywhere. The walk says a lot about Hinton and his resolve. For nearly 40 years, Hinton has been trying to get computers to learn like people do, a quest almost everyone thought was crazy or at least hopeless, right up until the moment it revolutionized the field.
Google thinks this is the future of the company. Amazon thinks it's the future of the company. Apple thinks it's the future of the company. My own department thinks this stuff's probably nonsense and we shouldn't be doing any more of it. So I talked everybody into it except my own department.
You obviously grew up in the UK, and you had this very prestigious family full of famous mathematicians and economists. And I was curious what it was like for you.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure. I think by the time I was about 7, I realized I was going to have to get a PhD.
Did you rebel against that, or you went along with it?
I dropped out every so often.
Yeah.
I became a carpenter for a while.
Chef Hinton, pretty early on, became obsessed with this idea of figuring out how the mind works. He started off getting into physiology, the anatomy of how the brain worked. Then he got into psychology. And then finally, he settled on more of a computer science approach to modeling the brain and got into artificial intelligence.
My feeling is, if you want to understand a really complicated device, like a brain, you should build one. I mean, you could look at cars and you could think you could understand cars. When you try and build a car, you suddenly discover that there's this stuff that has to go under the hood, otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah.
As Jeff was starting to think about these ideas, he got inspired by some AI researchers across the pond. Specifically this guy, Frank Rosenblatt.
Rosenblatt, in the late 1950s, developed what he called a perceptron, and it was a neural network, a computing system that would mimic the brain.
The basic idea is a collection of small units called neurons. These are little computing units, but they're actually modeled on the way that the human brain does its computation. They take incoming data like we do from our senses, and they actually learn, so the neural net can learn to make decisions over time.
Rosenblatt's hope was that you could feed a neural network a bunch of data, like pictures of men and women, and it would eventually learn how to tell them apart, just like humans do. There was just one problem. It didn't work very well.
Rosenblatt, his neural network was a single layer of neurons, and it was limited in what it could do, extremely limited. And a colleague of his wrote a book in the late 60s that showed these limitations. And it kind of put the whole area of research into a deep freeze for a good 10 years. No one wanted to work in this area. They were sure it would never work.
Well, almost no one.
It was just obvious to me that it was the right way to go. The brain's a big neural network, and so it has to be that stuff like this can work because it works in our brains. There's just never any doubt about that.
And what do you think it was inside of you that kept you wanting to pursue this when everyone else was giving up, just that you thought it was the right direction to go?
No, that everyone else was wrong.
Okay. Hinton decides he's got an idea of how these neural nets might work, and he's going to pursue it no matter what. For a little while, he's bouncing around research institutions in the US. He kind of gets fed up that most of them are funded by the Defense Department, and he starts looking for somewhere else he can go.
I didn't want to take Defense Department money. I sort of didn't like the idea that this stuff was going to be used for purposes that I didn't think were good.
He suddenly hears that Canada might be interested in funding artificial intelligence.
And that was very attractive, that I could go off to this civilized town and just get on with it. So I came to the University of Toronto. And then in the mid-'80s, we discovered how to make more complicated neural nets so they could solve those problems that the simple ones couldn't solve.
He and his collaborators developed a multi-layer neural network, a deep neural network. And this started to work in a lot of ways. Using a neural network, a guy named Dean Pomerleau built a self-driving car in the late 80s, and it drove on public roads. Jan LeCun in the 90s built a system that could recognize handwritten digits, and this ended up being used commercially. But again, they hit a ceiling.
They didn't work quite well enough because we didn't have enough data, we didn't have enough compute power. And people in AI and computer science decided neural networks was wishful thinking, basically. So it was a big disappointment.
Through the 90s, into the 2000s, Jeff was one of only a handful of people on the planet who were still pursuing this technology. He would show up at academic conferences and be banished to the back rooms. He was treated as really like a pariah.
Was there like a time when you thought this just wasn't going to work and you did have some self-doubt?
I mean, there were many times when I thought, I'm not going to make this work.
But Jeff was consumed by this and couldn't stop. He just kept pursuing the idea that computers could learn until about 2006, when the world catches up to Hinton's ideas.
Computers were now a lot faster. And now it's behaving like I thought it would behave in the mid-80s. It's solving everything.
The arrival of super-fast chips and the massive amounts of data produced on the internet gave Hinton's algorithms a magical boost. Suddenly, computers could identify what was in an image. Then, they could recognize speech and translate from one language to another. By 2012, words like neural nets and machine learning were popping up on the front page of the New York Times.
You have to go all these years, and then all of a sudden, you know, in this span of a few months, it just takes off. Did it finally feel like, aha, you know, the world has finally come to my vision?
It was sort of a relief that people finally came to their senses.
Next up, we have Professor Geoffrey Hinton of the University of Toronto.
Thank you.
For Hinton, this is obviously a really redemptive moment. Now he's basically a technology celebrity. And for Canada, it's the country's moment as well. They have more AI researchers than just about any other place on the planet, and the quest now is to see what these guys can do, starting companies and pushing the technology forward. I'm gonna set out on a journey across Canada to see the best in Canadian AI technology and to get a feel for how far the technology has come and how far it still has to go.
A big part of Hinton's legacy lies beyond these examples of AI in the world. He's also inspired a legion of disciples spreading the good word of neural nets. Yoshua Bengio is a professor at the University of Montreal. He's one of the researchers who glommed onto Hinton's ideas when it seemed to make little sense to do so. Over the years, he's formed a mind meld with Hinton, and together, they've come up with many of the key concepts behind modern AI.
You guys worked on this stuff through the 80s, 90s, the 2000s, and then it just seemed like this totally went from computer science and research to we see it everywhere in our lives. Are even you surprised what's happened the last 5 years, that it really is like sitting on all our phones? And
the rate at which the progress and the industrial products have been coming out is totally something we didn't expect. Even now, it's hard to predict. Where are we going? Is it gonna slow down? Or are we gonna continue with this exponential increase?
It's thanks to Yoshua that Montreal is full of top-notch AI graduate talent. This in turn has brought tech giants like Google and Facebook to town, along with their ample checkbooks.
to me, it seems like if you're good at AI, you can make $200,000–300,000 a year. It's crazy to see how much these guys get paid now.
$1 million is something quite common as a salary.
Have you ever had a country offer you an incredible amount of money to come set up a lab there?
Not a country, but yeah, companies, yeah.
But Yoshua has rejected the lucrative offers of big neural net. he remains committed to the ivory towers of academia, which is a better fit for his philosophical approach to AI.
You've got guys like Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking that sometimes paint this technology in a very, very dark light, that it could run amok and start doing things on its own. What do you feel when you hear people say things like that?
I'm not concerned about technology running amok. The Terminator scenario, I think, is not very credible. And I also believe that if we're able to build machines that are as smart as us, they're also smart enough to understand our values and to understand our moral system and so act in a way that's good for us. Now, I think there are real concerns, which is essentially misuse of AI to influence people's minds. It's already happening with political advertising.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen like the stuff from Facebook.
So I think we should be careful about this and try to regulate the use of AI in places where it's morally wrong, ethically wrong. I think we should just ban it and make it, illegal.
It's comforting that Joshua has these concerns. But hop down the road from the university, and reality, or what's left of it, becomes messier. This tiny room is the home to a startup called Lyrebird. It was founded by Joshua's former students and has built an app that can clone your voice.
Are you speaking about this new algorithm to copy voices? This is huge. It can make us say anything now, really anything.
One of its founders is this guy, Mexican expat Jose. He taught me the art of the clone.
So you'll need to record yourself for a few minutes of audio.
Thousands of letters danced across the amateur author's screen. When you start to eat like this, something is the matter. You guys better quit politics and take in washing. I don't know where that one came from. Okay, so create my digital voice now. Creating your digital voice takes at least 1 minute. 1 minute? My God.
Yeah, so before, to create some artificial voice of someone, you would need to record yourself for at least 8 hours.
Test your voice. All right, so now I get to type something.
Yeah, so the moment of the truth.
Okay.
Once Lyrebird's AI has worked its magic, after I'm done typing,
oh, gotta spell better.
Any words I put into the app can be played back in my digital voice. And here's the crazy thing. Even words I never actually said in the first place.
Artificial intelligence technology seems to be advancing very quickly. Should we be afraid? I mean, I can definitely hear my voice in there. That's really interesting. I just picked those words at random, and I definitely did not say some of them, and it's like flawless in being able to sort of pick from just about any word and manufacture it. Hello World is the best show I have ever seen.
This technology seems sweet, but lends itself to all manner of trickery.
I've popped back to my hotel to test out the Lyrebird technology a little bit, and you can see some really obvious ways that this could be abused. This is fake Donald Trump talking.
The United States is considering, in addition to other options, stopping all trade with any country doing business with North Korea.
And then you could picture somebody taking over your voice and creating some mayhem in your personal life. Now, to really put my computer voice to the test, I am going to call my dear, sweet mother and see if she recognizes me.
Hey, Mom.
Hi.
What are you guys up to today?
Well, it's Saturday. We didn't have any electricity early this morning, and we're just hanging around the house.
I'm just finishing up work and waiting for the boys to get home.
Okay.
I think I'm coming down with a virus.
Oh, well, you feel bad, hey?
I was messing around with you. You were talking to a computer.
I felt like I was talking to you. It's amazing.
Is that scary or good?
It could be scary if it was something really important. It's you now, isn't it, Ash?
I don't know.
It sounds like you.
Is it?
Yes, it sounds like it, yeah.
After realizing that anyone with the time and inclination could mess with my life, there was only one thing left to do. I joined Jose and a few other lyrebirds to chat more about the evils of AI while dulling my fear with booze.
Obviously, some people are freaked out by this technology because we're already like blurring the line about truth and reality.
Of course, there is some risk in people using this kind of technology for bad applications. Unfortunately, technology it's not possible to stop it. So the ethical path that we have decided is to show this to people, to make them know that this kind of technology is available, and so to make them more cautious on this kind of subject.
We really believe that right now, when the technology is not perfect, is the right time to let people kind of play with it, get used to it slowly.
So you guys think that the idea is just sort of new and that's why it scares people, but if you get used to it, that's just the way it is.
We want our technology to be used for positive things. It's not something that we should be really afraid of. It's something that we should be careful about, but I feel enthusiastic about.
It's nice to be enthusiastic. It's also nice to meditate on the consequences of your inventions, instead of turning our souls over to chance and blind luck. But it is kind of cool to be a cynical bastard in my new artisanal computer voice.
Welcome, Russian friends, to our huge, wonderful, and very pure elections.
AI. Maybe it should stand for assistive intelligence then. That's what this guy thinks. Joseph Sirosh is Microsoft's Chief Technology Officer for AI, and I caught up with him a few weeks ago for a refreshingly honest take on the technology. Someone once said to me, intelligence is what we use when we don't know what to do. And I think that's the best description of intelligence I've ever heard.
And my favorite definition of artificial intelligence is it's the opposite of natural stupidity.
There's plenty of that in the world, isn't there? Yeah. But what is artificial intelligence and what is just data crunching is just looking at lots of historical data and processing it really quickly and looking smart.
These days, when computer scientists adopted learning from data, they are crunching text and translating it. They're crunching audio input and doing speech recognition. They're crunching images and recognizing things that are in it. So all of that now gives a perception of human-like capability. But it really still is, at the end of the day, data crunching, just different kinds of data. And what happened is, look, in the last 10, 20 years, as mobile phones came and cameras became incredibly cheap and everything, text became digital, like this is not the case, right? So all of this became data. So everything became data. The world became data. And so now, when you do crunching on that, well, then it starts to look very incredibly smart and intelligent. And
so good, you've got pretty high standards. I like that. What would a system have to be able to do for you to say that is actually artificially intelligent?
To be able to do really complex reasoning with it, right? And like humans do, and be able to do so in the face of uncertainty. And do things like one-shot learning, instant learning. I have to see a thing only one time, and I know what it is, and I know how to react to it. And even the smallest of living things seem to know how to react to things they encounter. And that is the kind of thing that I want to see.
Do we have anything like that yet?
No. I mean, I don't think we have even achieved the abilities of an ant. I mean, we have the computational power to simulate the equivalent of their neural systems, but we haven't figured out how an ant navigates in the world and really survives in an uncertain environment and reacts to all kinds of stimuli. And creatures that live on a planet have evolved over billions of years, and not through teaching, not through schools of AI. They've evolved in a very variable world. And that's led to intelligence. Even the smallest creatures have intelligence. I think when I see something like that starting to emerge, maybe then I'll start believing in the specter of artificial intelligence. Until then, it's just software. Until then, it's just machine learning.
What is your job title?
It is called the CTO of AI. I know.
Okay. Do you think that's one of the trends at the moment, is to recognize the limits of AI and just say, no, at the moment we're going to give that back to the humans?
Completely. I mean, it's called assistive intelligence, right? AI is most powerful when it's augmenting humans. And what we are enabling with the power of all our devices, whether it be mobile phones, IoT, the cloud, algorithms, is enabling humans to be far more empowered in every action. And it's actually not that different from any technology. Your mobile phone empowers you in so many ways, right? And so AI is another software technology that adds to that, layers on top of it, and then extends the human reach, so to speak.
What sort of things should today's children be studying in order to work in the world that they will grow into?
Creative work. The sort of things that only humans can truly do. Innovation, right? I mean, really the history of humanity is about leveraging technology, standing on the shoulders of giants, and reaching for something new.
That was Joseph Soros, and more AI now. Now, as sports go, cricket has been an early adopter of technology, with a whole armoury of high-tech video tools used for umpiring decisions. Well, now a former Indian captain has come up with a technology that could give fans an insight into what's happening with the cricketer's favourite weapon, the bat. We sent cricket crazy David Reed to Mumbai.
It's too small for my big head. You know the way you remember you were good at something and then it turns out that you weren't? Well, this is me discovering that with batting. Luckily, Indian cricket legend Anil Kumble was on hand to show how it ought to be done.
The most important factor for any batsman is the bat speed, and then how much twist at the time of impact, and the quality of the shot itself. You know, how close is it to this particular sweet spot here?
Bat speed, twist, and how close you are to hitting the sweet spot are now measurable thanks to a new artificial intelligence technology, PowerBat. It's been developed by Kumble's company, Spectracom. At the heart of the system is a clever sticker on the back of the bat.
Hidden under here is this, and this is a cluster of sensors. You have a Bluetooth aerial here. There's also includes a gyro sensor, which measures the twist of the bat, the angle of the bat through space, its velocity as well. There is also a sensor for vibration, so you can detect where the ball is hitting in approximation to that all-important sweet spot.
The sticker sends those measurements for the speed, the twist, the quality of the shot, and they're then combined to calculate the power. It's essentially the energy you get into the shot. The system aims to take fans watching the game up close to what's happening on the pitch.
The first use case is to enhance the fan engagement. You know, everybody talks about timing of the shot. Oh, this was powerfully hit. This was sweetly timed. What does that all mean in real-time numbers, in real-time data?
The amateur version of PowerBat communicates directly to a mobile phone via Bluetooth. But because you can't carry a mobile in professional games, with the Pro setup, all data runs through a device hidden behind the stumps.
Okay, so this is how the professional system works. The data comes from the tag here on the back of the bat. It then comes through to Stumpy, the stump box, which is buried underground. You can see that this antenna, this bit, would be poking out of the top of the pitch. The data then is sent off down this cable to the cloud, where an algorithm does its work.
The Pro PowerBat might end up being used by umpires, especially if the broadcasters now using it in the Indian Professional League call out bad on-field umpiring decisions. The mobile app is more about cricket fans and amateur players getting closer to emulating their heroes.
The fan out there who wants to look up to his hero, what is the benchmark for him to achieve? Can you emulate him? Can you be as close to power that he can deliver? Can you do that? That's something that you can do.
At the end of the day, by polite arrangement, Anil let me bowl him out. Yeah, it was fake, but I got him first ball and it felt great. Watch him second.
See, all you needed was just one ball.
Zara Technologies is one of many startups that are being spun out of the 23 Indian Institutes of Technology, universities which span the country, providing a tech education for tens of thousands of young Indians, and incubators to allow their research to be turned into small businesses after graduation. One of the visions of IIT was to create world-class engineers and world-class projects and perform world-class research, and it certainly had some big global success stories. These include Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, and more recently, Binny Bansal. He's the co-founder of Flipkart, a massive online shopping site launched in 2007, 6 years before Amazon arrived in the country. It's considered one of India's most successful startups, and when Walmart recently bought most of the company, the deal made Binny a billionaire. And whilst in Delhi, I couldn't resist grabbing a few minutes with the man himself to get a snapshot of the Indian tech industry. How have you seen the Indian tech scene change in the last 20 years?
I think the Indian tech scene really started evolving in the last like 10-12 years. I think 20 years back there was not really a tech scene. The tech scene was people just used to graduate and go to the US and work in product companies. We didn't really have Indian product companies. There were a handful, literally there were a handful, you could count them on your fingers. So it really started changing in 2011-12 when a lot of startups started coming out of India. And I think in the last 10 years, there has been just an exponential sort of rate of growth in number of startups and number of people working in them.
Why is that, do you think?
So multiple reasons. I think one is that we have a lot bigger market, a lot bigger economy, lot bigger market. Most importantly, we have a lot more people on the internet. So 10 years back, we had 15-20 million people on the internet. Today, we have more than 350-400 million people connected. And that just creates, I think that has created a huge market for Indian entrepreneurs now to take big bets and to really dream big and then execute, which wasn't the case before.
What do you think India is really good at?
I think one thing I believe India is really good at is producing global leaders. So if you look at companies like Pepsi, Google, Microsoft, a lot of the CEOs today are Indian. And that kind of gives me hope that not so much in the future we'll have the next Google or Microsoft coming out of India, because Indian entrepreneurs and Indian leaders I think can scale businesses globally much better than maybe their Chinese counterparts.
And what do you think India is not good at?
Given our evolution, given the infrastructure that we've had, we tend to take shortcuts to problems. And because things are broke, so many of the things are broken. So I think that is something which also needs a mindset change.
Artificial intelligence, good or bad for India?
I think both. I think it's very hard to predict which side the penny falls. So great because, it can solve healthcare at scale, it can solve education at scale, it can solve so many of these societal issues at scale, and I can just imagine that happening. Bad because it is going to take away a large number of jobs, so that becomes, but I think that's a problem well defined and can be solved with the right intentions and the right solutions. So I'm again more optimistic than pessimistic about AI.
Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you.
We all make poor life choices. Take these two guys, for example. They're the founders of a self-driving car company called Zoox, and they've decided it makes sense to try and compete against this.
Waymo, the Google self-driving car project, Cruise Automation, Daimler, Baidu, Uber, and Lyft.
But Zoox is different. Its rivals are adding self-driving technology to existing cars. Meanwhile, Zoox is making a new type of vehicle for the self-driving age. Basically, Zoox is making a robot, and its early incarnation looks like the love child of the Matrix, Mad Max, and Transformers franchises. This is Tim Kentley Clay. He hails from Australia, and down under, he was a well-known designer and ad guy. One day he had an epiphany, a vision of the future full of robotic vehicles, and came here to build them.
I sort of just saw the future of how the whole system could work. I said, okay, I need to find a brilliant computer scientist, and so that led me on a journey for 6 months actually when I ended up finding Jesse.
That brilliant computer scientist is Dr. Jesse Levinson, a Stanford grad who was sought after by none other than Google itself.
I actually visited Google X in 2013 to come and speak on my vision for autonomy. In talking, a fellow said there's this one guy and he's really good and we can't get him. So that was my signal to go and get him.
A lot of your colleagues have run off to companies like Google or Uber to retrofit a cars. What drew you to this particular task and this approach?
I've been working on self-driving cars since 2005, and it's pretty clear even back then that it was going to be one of the more transformative technologies for society. It wasn't enough to just solve the technology. You need a product and you need a business that makes sense. And I hadn't seen that in any other company until I met Tim, and he shared his high-level vision for what Zoox could be.
And that vision is a system of completely autonomous robotic vehicles that can be summoned just like a Lyft, or, dare I say it, an Uber.
We have a very clear vision at Zoox, which is that AI and mobility will take us out of the age of the automobile and into the next mobility age, which for us is robotics, autonomous transportation.
Tim and Jesse take me to the Alameda Naval Air Station, where I'm about to get a test drive and see how a Zoox robot handles.
These are very unique vehicles. They're designed in a way that would only make sense if they're going to be fully autonomous. The powertrains are designed for full autonomy. They're fully redundant. They have dual high voltage batteries. They have dual low voltage architectures. You can see they're rigged with compute sensors. They can drive without any human intervention. This is VH4. This is VH5. Do you want to go for a ride?
Yeah, I do.
All right, jump in.
Zoox has placed cones on the tarmac. The robot is going to drive out and try to dodge them. And I get to do the whole test sitting backwards, because Tim thought it would be funny.
Keyboard holder. Time to meet my robot maker.
And with one swift keystroke, I give complete control of my life over to an AI.
That really doesn't get old, man. It's like being on a ride at Disney.
These AI robots crank through the course at 45 miles per hour, and the VH5 is set to rip through it at a delightful 75 miles per hour.
We can choose all-wheel steering, two-wheel steering, crab steering, dual motors, and then we have direction.
I like the crab steering.
Zoox got its start here in this abandoned firehouse back in 2015, with only 6 employees. They've since raised an astonishing $800 million and have expanded their operations into a one-stop robot-making shop. With the help of 400 employees, Zoox is now on their way to turning these prototypes into full-fledged vehicles by 2020. For the moment, though, Zoox does most of its software testing in these modified versions of Toyota Highlanders, which have the decided advantage of being street legal.
We're actually going to get you to drive autonomously from this facility to our new headquarters in Foster City, and then Jesse's going to jump in and you can drive to downtown San Francisco. We don't know any company in the world that is driving that multi-dimensional degree of difficulty from urban to freeway to dense downtown.
So that's a bicycle?
That was a cyclist, yes. That's the car behind us.
It's something like the speed limit. Does that get taken by the cameras seeing the signs, or that's something that has to get entered in as you map the world?
If there's a sign that's been vandalized or it's missing or it's got, growth on it, the vehicle wouldn't know what the speed limit is and that could cause an incident, right? Or a fine. So speed limits are really well understood on the road networks, so we put that in as a prior on the map.
Okay. So coming up right here, we have to do a left turn yield. So you get So I just got to see this other car.
Yeah, so we're a bit concerned about this car that's coming towards us from a prediction level, so we just want to make sure that they do the right thing. And now we're yielding. If you look on this screen, see there's yellow here?
Yep.
That means we're yielding for that vehicle.
Okay.
And now we're off. We're about to drive onto the freeway, so this will be interesting. You can see there's quite a bit of traffic on our left.
Yep.
And the vehicle's indicating at the moment. It's going to brake a little bit harder because we've got this vehicle right on our 6.
Yeah.
And we're running out of runway. And now we merge in. So that would have been a hard situation even for a human driver. We needed to merge, and that person on the left was not letting us in. We tried to go in front, they stayed with us, and then we had to brake, let them go past, and then we pulled in.
Yeah.
And that was all autonomous, and you can see how smooth that was. Good robot. So one of the hardest things to do with autonomous driving is actually prediction. Because you not only need to understand what the state of the world is, you have to say, well, what's the state of the world in the near future? If I do this, what will that person do?
Yep.
And so that creates very quickly a large search tree. And if the vehicle's going to drive with good performance, you need to be able to predict well the state of the world in the near future. Here's our new headquarters. 20 minutes, suburban driving, freeways merging, 100% autonomous.
Yeah. That was incredible.
That was amazing.
All right, guys, let's go 2 for 2. No pressure. What's like in each box? It looks like there's like a Y and L.
Yeah, there's a V, an R, and an L.
Okay.
So V means vision, R means radar, and L means LiDAR. So we use cameras, we use radar, and we use LiDAR. Cameras are really good at seeing what things are. Radar is really good at seeing where things are in terms of how far away they are. And then LiDAR is really good at telling you where things are in 3D at pretty high resolution and pretty high accuracy. And so what we do is we fuse those 3 sensors together in real time to form one coherent view of the world, which is actually what you're looking at on the screen. Definitely crowded.
I mean, that must make it harder. I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep track of. We have made it autonomously to San Francisco.
San Francisco.
As far as the public knows, Zoox, along with Waymo and GM Cruise, are the only companies capable of doing this kind of drive. And this is the first time they've ever shown the cars in action to the public. Is it madness to take on many of the world's leading automotive and tech companies at the same time? Yes, of course it is. But I say go forth, Tim and Jesse. We all await our Lux robotic rideshare of the future.
Thanks for watching. And if you want to see more Hello World, click on the link to subscribe.